Universalist church, building community, inspiring growth, creating change. Here in the heart of Kansas City, we come together to create this hour of shared reflection so that we might be renewed in courage for these times and inspired to lives of greater dignity, higher purpose, deeper generosity, and more effective action. May the words and music and images that we offer today nourish our best selves, calling forth abundant wisdom and love, a love that has the power to overcome both loneliness in the heart and oppression in the world. Welcome to our service.
Arise, O souls, arise.
Good morning. I'm Don Dickey, a member of this congregation, and it's my privilege to welcome you here on this overcast Sunday and this historic Sunday. This is the first Sunday since a former president has been convicted of crimes with which he was charged in a New York courtroom. Whether you are here in the room or watching us online, you are welcome here. We are glad that you're here. Your participation enriches all of us and our time together. Now, please join me in welcoming to our service today Charles Dickinson at the piano. Charles will be with us for several Sundays while Anthony Edwards is out in the old Rust Belt, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, where he's being music director, as I understand it, for a big production out there. Now, we are a Unitarian Universalist congregation. Our tradition is a large tent with room for many beliefs and approaches to the questions that matter. That said, our values of inclusion, compassion, and justice are strong and hold us together. We seek to build the beloved community, making room for everyone and creating a world where everyone's needs are met. Whoever you are, whomever you love, wherever you are on your spiritual journey, you are welcome here. Whether you come with laughter in your heart or tears, you are welcome here. You are invited to join us with an open mind, a loving heart, and willing hands. We welcome you here today. Now, you may be new to this here this morning, and I hope that you have visited the welcome table in the lobby, where you can learn more about our congregation. So, would all Souls members who want to meet visitors please raise your hand? My hand's included. Now, visitors, as you feel comfortable, I encourage you to talk to any of the people who raised their hands here today. And fellow congregants, I encourage you to seek out the new faces among us. Let our visitors know they are valued, and begin a conversation that has the potential to last a long time.
Again, good morning and welcome to All Souls Unitarian Universalist Church. Welcome to those who grieve and to those who rejoice, to those of needy heart and those of generous spirit. Welcome to those whose days are empty and to those whose time is never enough. To those who stride with assurance and those who are shadowed by despair. Welcome to those who endure and those who resist, to those who repent and those who forgive. Welcome to those who create the future and those who preserve the past, to the humble and the proud, the shy and the brave. Welcome all souls to this covenant community of memory and promise. Around us, many fires rage, perhaps in your corner of the world, or yours, or even mine. Sometimes, yes, truly, but always ours. More and more now, the whole wide world is ablaze. But fire or not, this is no time to shrink or shirk. While despair or grief may have entered the room of your heart, it is not the only occupant there. There is more to you and more to us than that sticky residue of pain. Your heart also keeps company with ancestors who lend us deep wisdom and curiosity, wellsprings of compassion, abiding love, and humor when all else fails. Now it is time to connect, to feel the profound truth of no separation. Now it is time to thrive for you and for us, though there are perhaps some moments when you may doubt that is possible. This thing to be done is our thing. It is not to be handed off to others. This time is our time. Now is when action is possible. It is to this moment that each of us is called, and all of us are called. Called to hope as well as alarm, called to heal beyond borders, called to resist, insist, and persist, called to hold back the flames that threaten what we know is sacred. Listen, beloved. True, everything is on fire, but all is not lost. It is good that we gather together. As people in many cultures through the ages have made fire a signal of sacred intention, so we kindle this chalice flame today. May it center our spirits for this time together, not in destruction, but in the light of truth, the compassion and comfort of community, and the shared energy of commitment, so that we may be renewed for our work in the world, for the love of our neighbors, and for the unending quest for truth, understanding, and peace. We kindle this chalice flame as a symbol of our gathering. May this nurturing fire remind us what is forever required of our humanity, to move in right relationship and justice, to make our strength fruitful in loving service, and to abide in humble gratitude for all the sacred gifts of life.
Please rise as you are able and join us in the affirmation of our covenant, and then we will sing the children out prior to our song. Together we affirm, goodwill is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. Oh, I think we'll do the sharing the journey right after singing the children out, so go ahead and please be seated. And join us in singing the children to their classes.
Our commitment to human fellowship means that we are called upon to be glad with those who rejoice and to weep with those who mourn. Thus we set aside this time in our gathering together to share with one another the joys and concerns which are now shaping our lives. May the beauty and sweetness of these brief flowers remind us to hold one another in the bonds of sympathy, encouragement, and care. I begin with the stem of several flowers in loving memory of my friend and colleague and former student, Stephen Protzman, who was the intern minister at the First Unitarian Society of Minneapolis when I was the minister there, and who died earlier this spring quite unexpectedly. And also in memory of the Reverend Kenneth McLean, who was a friend and colleague and mentor who offered the charge to the minister at my ordination more than 40 years ago, and who always welcomed Mark and me as visitors in his retirement community in Palm Springs, California. And I was privileged to have known him and been his colleague and friend. And let me note that if you prefer to share without being on YouTube or broadcast this morning, there will be a moment towards the end of our sharing when we will turn off the cameras and the sound, and you are welcome to wait until that point if you would rather share only with the folks in this room. Are there any other joys or concerns to be shared this morning?
I'm Scott England, and my joy is Happy Pride Month. Would also like to extend an invitation. All Souls, together with Shawnee Mission and hopefully some folks from Gaia, have a spot in the Pride Parade. Anyone who would like to march with us on Saturday, contact me in the lobby, or there's information both in the Flicker and the Flame.
I'm Margaret Estrin Drinkwine, and I'm afraid that I'm sharing a concern. This week, I had to say goodbye to Duchesne Clinic, where I have volunteered for the last 6.5 years since retiring, offering health care to the uninsured. 6 weeks ago, our sponsoring organization pulled our funding because we take care of too many immigrants and not enough Medicaid, and Kansas has refused to expand Medicaid. I've talked to my senator till I'm blue in the face. But anyway, so we had 6 weeks to let 1,300 people know that they no longer have care and need to find a new organization, and now I'm scrambling to find a new place where I can offer them care. So it's been kind of a sad week for me.
I'm Don Dickey. Had my neck go out about a month ago, and it hadn't been out like that for years. I have been reluctant to go to chiropractors for decades because I've had a few that were good and some that would, come hell or high water, that bone's gonna move. I'm happy to report I found 2 good chiropractors, and I'm operating better than I had been for a good part of the last month.
All Souls has been such a significant part of my spiritual journey, and this week I'll celebrate 200 days of sobriety because of it. So thank you all.
My name's Charles Tibbs, and yesterday at my job, we celebrated the 1-year anniversary of free food literacy programs through Mid-Continent Public Libraries, a really cool thing.
My name is Beth Andes, and as a lot of you may know, I was estranged from my daughter for 7 years. A very difficult and anyway, it was a terrible time for me. Anyway, a couple of years ago, we reconnected, and I just got back from a 2-week trip with her, And when I opened my mailbox yesterday, I had a postcard from Split, Croatia, where we were together, but it was from her, wishing me a happy Mother's Day, calling me mother, and telling me she loved me.
Hi, I'm Patty Beardall, and my 11-year-old granddaughter, who I'm raising, is making me do this. But anyway, Beth, I have sort of similar things going on. My daughter didn't do well from about the age of 18 till late 20s or mid 20s, I don't know, for a long time. She's been doing really well. My 11-year-old, who I'm raising, now has a sibling, and that's who she wanted me to come up and mention. Her name is Ileana. She'll be 3 in September. And when she was first born, because of what had happened during the whole process of me adopting my granddaughter, I decided, no matter what, I'm not getting the system involved. I will do what I need to do to make sure that my new granddaughter is safe, and I committed that I would go over and check on her once a week. And if it ever was not okay, I would kidnap my granddaughter, and my daughter could just call 911 and see what happened to her. But at any rate, my daughter has straightened out. She has it's not my kind of life, but she has a life. She has a life, and she's raising her granddaughter in a good and healthy way, So this is what, this is on behalf of my granddaughter, who I'm now raising, Ariel, who wanted me to come up here and talk about her relationship with her sister. So anyway. Yeah, that's good.
Hi, my name's Anna. This is my first time here, but just moved from St. Louis. Yesterday was actually my 60 days of sobriety. Thanks. Very excited to meet everybody.
I want to remind everybody that very small things often can be very important. For example, the leaving a few blank spaces where there isn't a chair for people like me who want to stick the walker somewhere. I enjoy seeing people that are new and that I can say hello to. And so this is a wonderful church, and we need to keep it this way, and we need to think of the small things as well as the big things.
Now, let me ask the tech deck to flower in recognition of all the outreachings of the Spirit that abide unspoken in our hearts, and invite you to join in the song response.
Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea, move in the hand, giving life the shape of justice. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me.
The offering, as a weekly practice in community, has two important purposes. One, it reminds us that our communities of faith can only exist and thrive and make a difference in the solid, three-dimensional material world of time and space and energy and money. Whatever hopes we cherish, whatever help we want to give or love we wish to express, must be given form here and now if it is going to matter to anyone or change anything. The only way we make our values real is by clothing them in the flesh of food for those who are hungry and shelter for those who are without homes, and moments of beauty that we can all share. More importantly, the offering gives us the opportunity to practice generosity as a quality of how we relate to the world around us. So we live in a way that keeps the gifts of life moving across the structures of community. Being invited to give support to the work of the common good teaches us to be less attached to our own surplus or excess, but rather to continually build the web of connections in which both individuals and communities thrive. And so at this time, your contributions to the maintenance of the spiritual home that we share and to the sustenance of those whose talent and labor bring it to life will be received with immense gratitude.
Please join me in the dedication of our offering. We dedicate our offerings and our actions to the mission at the heart of this congregation, to build a respectful, caring community, to inspire personal and spiritual growth, and to create change toward a just and compassionate society.
Good morning. Our first reading is an excerpt from the book Reveal, Where Are You? By Greg L. Hawkins and Callie Parkinson. Imagine this. A new member of your church has asked to meet you for lunch. After some small talk, he looks you in the eye and says, "My wife and I want to do something for the church. We would like to contribute $1 million. Did you hear that right? $1 million? Excuse me? Is the only response you can offer. Again, he says, we would like to give the church $1 million. The only thing we ask, oh no, you think, here come the strings attached, is that you use the money toward what you know will result in the greatest impact for God's kingdom. We want you to guarantee that people far from God will be found, and those found will grow in their love for God and for other people." Now, 1,000 ideas run through your head. With that kind of money, you could do just about anything and everything you can think of. Buy land, build buildings, hire staff, pay down debt, fund mission trips, launch a regional campus. It would be great if you could just look your new friend in the eye and say, I know exactly how to invest that money to guarantee the greatest kingdom impact. Yet, we all know we can't make a guarantee like that. But now imagine there was no guarantee clause attached. What if your new donor just slid the check across the table and said, spend it wisely? What would you do with the money? If you're like me, you would do what church leaders have been doing for generations. Design and fund an assortment of church activities and programs that you sincerely believe will help people grow spiritually. Then you would encourage as many people as possible to get involved in those activities and programs, believing that increased participation means the lost are being reached and believers are growing spiritually. But let's stop and really think that through. Does increased attendance in ministry programs automatically equate to spiritual growth? To be brutally honest, it does not. Attendance numbers help determine if people like what you are doing. If they like what's happening, they choose to participate. Conversely, if they don't like what's happening, they choose not to participate. Maybe they like the music, or perhaps they appreciate how you're helping their children. Maybe they're making new friends. Perhaps they appreciate the opportunities the church provides to help others. The church activity model for spiritual growth suggests that it is a whole lot easier to count heads than it is to measure hearts. The hope is that whatever draws them helps them to experience the transforming power of God and, as a result, to grow spiritually. But the bottom line is, attendance numbers alone will never provide the information we need to know conclusively that church activities are really helping people grow. Attendance is one measure that something is working, but it's not the whole story. When it comes to numbers, we as leaders start to actually believe that attendance is the only thing we need to look at. It becomes a simple equation. Increased attendance equals people growing.
All right. So we're not poor leaders when we think that increased attendance equals people growing spiritually. It's just that we don't have any other practical way to measure growth. It's a whole lot easier to count heads than it is to measure heart change. Trust me, I know. Looking back over my 16 years on staff at Willow Creek Community Church, I've witnessed numbers regularly increasing. I've been part of a leadership team that's seen our church attendance grow more than 50%. Participation in small groups has increased by 500%. We've witnessed a dramatic increase in the number of people who serve the poor. At the end of most days, I'm excited by what I see, and I've been privileged to be part of as a leader. But then there are nights when I lie in bed and I wonder if we could be doing something different or better. I wonder if we're investing people's time and money in the most effective ways. I wonder if we're really making a difference. I wonder if my motivation is more about seeing numbers grow and less about seeing hearts grow. After all, if the numbers are growing, then all the hard work and sacrifice are not in vain, right? One of my kids' favorite stories, mine too, is How the Grinch Stole Christmas by Dr. Seuss. If you remember the story, the Grinch is a grouch. No one really knows why he's the way he is, but the storyteller would lead us to believe that perhaps his heart was 2 sizes too small. How do we know? Well, we watched the animated movie. It's a magic X-ray screen, and it shows us that indeed the Grinch's heart is way too small. Fortunately, that's not the end of the story. After doing a lot of really bad stuff to the Who's down in Whoville and poor little Cindy Lou Who, the Grinch has a life-changing experience. We actually get to see the transformation of his heart. Thanks to the magic screen, we watch as the Grinch's heart grows 3 sizes that Christmas day. Well, if we had access to Dr. Seuss's research labs, we could measure heart change to see if a person's heart for God and for others is really growing. And then we could learn what, if anything, the church is doing to help the spiritual growth process. We'd have a better idea of how best to spend our time and our resources. We'd know which ministries to start and which ones to change and which ones to shut down altogether. We'd know for sure if we're really making a difference. And we would be more confident to spend any surprise $1 million grants that come our way. We might not be able to provide a guarantee, but we could sleep a whole lot better at night, knowing that we were wise stewards with that gift. Too bad we don't have that magic X-ray machine, so we could find out if what we are doing as a church is really making a difference.
Okay, first, let's calibrate the translation process. I am, of course, not eager for anyone to approach me with $1 million to help build the kingdom or to bring people closer to God. Those are not the terms we would generally use. However, it is perfectly possible that someone could one day sit in my office and offer the same breathtaking amount of money to promote humanism or to support the mission of All Souls. And I would be at the same loss for a guarantee. Oh, I could think of ways to spend the money, never fear. Even apart from the fabric of our current facility, I could imagine how to spend $1 million on programming and staff to raise the profile of humanism in the city, to improve our operational competence, and expand our opportunities for participation very easily. But if you asked me to promise that these initiatives would change people's lives, I would hesitate. I would be willing to say that if we do enough of a variety of different things, the statistical likelihood is that some people will find some of them life-changing in some way. But as far as which activities will impact which people in which ways, we just don't have that kind of predictive power. In fact, our congregations are in the same dilemma that Greg Hawkins and Callie Parkinson describe. We can count heads in attendance on Sunday morning at children's religious education or adult RE, at small group ministry or choir practice or peace rallies, on the assumption that if people are showing up, they must be getting some benefit. But we don't have any good way of determining whether they are in fact becoming any wiser or kinder or more ethical or happier. We don't know if they are finding greater meaning, wholeness, or integrity in their lives, for the simple reason that we have no good ways of measuring these things. As Hawkins and Parkinson suggest, it is much easier to count heads than to measure hearts. We may differ with Willow Creek and the other megachurches as to how we want to help people improve their lives, but better lives is what we are after in the end. 25 years into the megachurch movement, most congregations in America have gotten the message that people don't come to church looking for the opportunity to join a committee. Committee work may sometimes be a path to other things that people want, like making connections or having power, or keeping the institution functioning, but it is not a value in itself, and fully staffed committees do not measure the success of a congregation's mission. Indeed, given the mobility and consumer mentality of today's churchgoers, if committee work is all that a congregation offers beyond Sunday morning, most people will soon look elsewhere. This recognition a quarter century ago brought about the present focus on content programming and small group ministry, efforts to offer people the retail product they appear to be shopping for. Experiences of emotional stimulation, spiritual inspiration, and personal connection became the supply to meet customer demand, and many congregations have grown increasingly sophisticated about designing and marketing their wares, both to their existing customer base and to the public at large. Now, I'm not saying that this is necessarily a bad thing, and neither, I take it, are Hawkins and Parkinson saying that. But it is worth contemplating whether raw consumer satisfaction is an adequate measure of a religious community's success. In fact, ironically enough, this whole process of reassessment was initiated at Willow Creek by an expression of dissatisfaction from a seemingly unlikely group of consumers. Like any smart, market-driven corporation, Willow Creek Church is constantly in the process of evaluating its programs and products, engaging the satisfaction of its customers. And lately, they had begun to notice a curious pattern. Some of the people who are most involved and committed to the church, long-term members, leaders, and pillars, active in all facets of the institution, were indicating a vague dissatisfaction. They had no complaints about the programs or activities or services they were receiving. That stuff was all fine. They just weren't sure that any of it was making that much difference in their lives, other than keeping them busy. They questioned, in a puzzled sort of way, whether they were actually growing in their faith, which they had thought was the object of coming to church. They were doing all the things that the congregation offered and recommended to them. They enjoyed the classes and felt good about serving in the soup kitchen and had formed close connections to other folks in their prayer groups. But they didn't feel as though they were actually becoming any closer to God, any more spiritually mature. I think that it is to the credit of the folks at Willow Creek that they picked up on this rather subtle puzzlement among people who would in all other respects be classified as satisfied customers. This is precisely the problem with the consumer satisfaction model of church success. If religious communities exist solely to provide services to current and potential customers under one or another theological brand niche, then counting heads and asking about the perceived value of the product certainly seems like the way to assess how we are doing. And there can be no question that such information is valuable and has substantially changed the way that many congregational systems think and operate. If there is no market for our brand, or if what we offer under that brand doesn't work well, then we aren't going to thrive. That's all there is to it. On the other hand, there is a bottom line beyond just selling our wares. In the business world, not only do you have to market a desirable product, you also need to turn some kind of profit, or you won't be in business for long. From time to time, historically, churches have been known to make the error of thinking that it was also their purpose to accumulate money. I think we might be able to agree that when that happens to a congregation, their religious identity and integrity are in big trouble, if not altogether lost. The church cannot usefully borrow the corporate bottom line, but I would argue that we have one of our own. It seems to me that the church's task ultimately is to help us all grow up and to cultivate our spiritual maturity. I think this is what those Willow Creek veterans who are casting about for something more were feeling. Despite the huge variety of educational, relational, and service program opportunities, they were not being nurtured in their spiritual life and growth. And their acknowledgement of this issue leads me to wonder just how well are we doing in our UU congregations with this generic task in our own liberal or humanist brand product line. I think that we need to think about what that bottom line looks like for us, and this is where I part company with Willow Creek and its Christian evangelical cousins. For except in the broadest possible metaphorical sense, we are not here to cultivate your walk with the Lord or your growth in Christ-likeness. On the other hand, we all surely understand the image of the Grinch's undersized heart and how the world became a better place and he became a better Grinch when a transformative experience caused it to expand. The stories about spiritual growth come from many places, and it should be no surprise that beloved children's literature is one of them. They also come from all over the world, as the Jesuit priest and spiritual advisor Anthony DeMello so beautifully illustrates in his anthology of teaching tales, The Song of the Bird. The three tales that our readers are going to share this morning are among my favorites, and it seems to me that they are all something about what it means to be a spiritual grown-up.
The first teaching story is from the Muslim tradition. A man walking through the forest saw a tiger with badly wounded front legs in a cave, and as it obviously couldn't run or hunt, he wondered how it lived. But as he watched, a fox ran into the cave with a piece of game in its mouth. The fox ate its fill and left the rest of the kill for the tiger. "How good is God who provides for all his creatures," the man said. He rested near the cave, and the next day also God fed the tiger by means of the fox. "This is a lesson in faith for me," said the man. I too will put my trust in God, and He will sustain me. He retired to a nearby cave, but for several days, nothing happened. Finally, faint with hunger, he heard the voice, "O thou who art in the path of error, repent. Stop imitating that disabled tiger. Go follow the example of the fox." The next story is from the Hindu tradition. A wandering holy man, a sannyasin, came to the edge of a village and prepared to rest for the night. Soon a villager came running toward him and cried out, "The stone, the precious stone! Please, please give me the stone." "What are you talking about?" the sannyasin asked. "Last night, Lord Shiva appeared to me in a dream," the villager replied. "He told me if I came to this place, I would meet a holy man who would give me a precious stone that would make me rich forever." The wanderer rummaged through his bag. "Well, he probably meant this. I found it on the forest floor a few days ago. Certainly, you can have it." The villager stared in wonder at the stone. It was a diamond as big as an egg. He took it and hurried away. But all night he tossed and turned in bed. At dawn, he returned to the wise man and pleaded, "Please, give me the wealth that makes you so able to give this precious stone away so easily." The last story is from the Buddhist tradition. Two Buddhist monks traveling to return to their monastery found an exceedingly beautiful woman at a riverbank. Like them, she wished to cross the river, but the water was too high for her, and there was no boat. One of the monks lifted her onto his back and carried her across to the other side. His companion was scandalized by his behavior. For hours after, he kept berating his colleague for his negligence in breaking their holy rule. How dare he touch a woman? What would people say? Did he not care about his holy vows? The offending monk bore patiently with this endless sermon, but finally he interrupted and said, "Brother, I left that woman on the opposite bank. Are you still carrying her?"
The seeker who is able not to become attached to the world's wealth triggers a hunger in the man who at first thought only of getting his hands on the costly diamond. The believer who chooses victimhood almost to the point of starvation realizes that there is a more responsible way of interpreting the scenario he witnessed between the disabled tiger and the fox. And the monk who is invested in rules and judgments finds that his mind is effectively less pure than the one who can do what needs to be done and then let go. Stories like these, in which I recognize myself as well as so many other people I know, serve to convince me that there is a continuum of spiritual maturity, just as there is a physical or intellectual or emotional maturity in each of our lives. Like these other three qualities, spiritual maturity unfolds in three interconnected but distinct ways. First, we all undergo a process of organic growth with a developmental trajectory that takes us through successive stages of competence. We learn to walk and talk, to use abstract symbols, and to take turns. We go through puberty, make affiliations with other people and groups, learn the patterns of reasoning that are relevant to our environment. This evolution happens almost unnoticed automatically unless something goes very wrong. At the same time, we may also have identifiable critical experiences that suddenly transform our physical, mental, emotional, or spiritual worlds. When someone close to you dies, or you discover that a dearly held belief isn't true, when a certain teacher or book opens up a whole new horizon of the mind, or when you become pregnant. In such moments, things change quickly and are never the same again. Thirdly, it is also possible to nurture our development in any of these dimensions by deliberate practice. You can train to run a marathon. You can work with a therapist to resolve emotional issues. You can read books or take courses on various topics to cultivate your mind. There is also an extensive tradition of practices for nurturing your spiritual maturity. And I would suggest that much as school is a place for the intentional pursuit of intellectual maturity, so religious community is a place where the bottom line is the goal of increasing spiritual maturity. That is the purpose that is not measured by attendance figures and participation records. Are people actually growing, deepening, becoming more spiritually mature as a result of anything this congregation is doing? School is actually a helpful analogy, I think, because there are many secondary purposes served by educational institutions. At its best, the experience there involves all our developmental dimensions, and we find the process engaging as well as challenging. It is good to make friends and admire teachers, good to go to the dances and join the clubs and cheer for the teams and be in the class picture. It is sad and a source of concern when any of those things doesn't happen, but none of it really means anything if you're not actually learning something. And learning, as we know to our cost these days, is not measured by attendance records. It is not even a function of the student's reported enjoyment of a particular class. In the long run, I suspect that we tend to remember most fondly the classes in which we really learned the most, but often enough they are not the ones where we had the most fun at the time. So it's a delicate balance. Obviously, if no one shows up at all, then no one is learning anything from a given class. And if the students dislike it because the material is boring or badly presented, or because they are frightened by the teacher, then they probably won't learn much either. But if they complain that the material is difficult to master, and yet they do master it, don't we tend to say, well, that's the nature of school? Sometimes intentional intellectual development is hard work, and we are not here just to have a good time. In fact, if the educational process works as it should, eventually we take responsibility for our own learning and actually seek out challenging things to learn and feel shortchanged if something that was supposed to be a learning opportunity doesn't make us stretch at least a little. I want to suggest that the same is true of religious community if we approach it right. Where school is about smart, church is about wise. It's great to find a sense of belonging and opportunities to make the world better and beautiful words and music and space. But when we gather as a congregation, if we are not about the business of becoming more spiritually grown up together, then the institution is not fulfilling its most basic function, and all these other things are just distractions. Of course, the first challenge that confronts us as religious liberals is to define what spiritual maturity looks like in our worldview. It is not about believing a set of ideas that we are told, certainly, or accepting the authority of anything but evidence, reality, and the requirements of our own conscience. Indeed, I would suggest that two of the qualities incorporated in spiritual maturity are these: the commitment to abide by logic and facts rather than wishful thinking, and the capacity to hold a position of conscience even in the face of disagreement or challenge by others. In my experience, these qualities do not necessarily correlate with the length of one's membership in a religious community. I've met people who are deeply involved in church institutional leadership or denominational programs or in social activism, but who seem to be not at all wise or kind or balanced, who had little resilience in the face of challenges and little patience or generosity toward others. Some of them were very smart people in many ways, but they had not found that peace at the core of themselves that is the soil in which wisdom grows. By the same token, I have encountered people who were not extensively educated or socially privileged, in whom I experienced a calm energy and joyful commitment to the world that just made me want to be around them. I expect we have all met folks like that. Just as our bodies grow toward equilibrium and health, and our minds demand to know the truth about the world, and our hearts yearn for authentic reciprocal love, so I think we have also an attraction toward spiritual adulthood. Some part of us wants to be more courageous and generous, more compassionate and self-aware, more at peace and at home in the world than we yet are. At times we mistake that longing for a signal that something is wrong within us, but it's not. That impulse is the call toward spiritual maturity, and it is in fact an indication that our humanity is unfolding as it should, that we are preparing to blossom fully into the unique person that each of us has the capacity to become. Becoming a spiritual grown-up means putting away childish things like grudges and victimhood, like selfishness and the desire to be protected from the consequences of our actions, like greed and self-righteousness, like the search for immortality and the hunger to make everyone else do as we command. Spiritual maturity means taking responsibility for our own behavior and our own boundaries, for the results of what we say and do, whether intended or unintended, and for the future that we help to create, at the same time as letting go of our impulse to try to control the world. It means enlarging our capacity to tolerate ambiguity, to repent and to forgive, to appreciate the uses of metaphor and the power of ritual, to celebrate and to mourn. And it means remembering our finitude and our mortality, not in terror, but with gratitude for the gift of life. It means discovering and embracing our own particular place in the interconnected web of being and honoring the diversity of all else that makes up that web. It also means having ethical principles that we are clear about, as well as a vast compassion for all the pain that is in the world. It means an openness to beauty, whether in art or in nature, whether physical delight or intellectual elegance, emotional catharsis or moral honor. Spiritual maturity means being able to offer uncorrupted leadership when it is your turn, and to be a loyal but not uncritical follower when that is your role. It means having the ability not to tell everything you know just to show how much you know, while at the same time being willing to speak truth to power as needed, even when that is an uncomfortable conversation. Spiritual maturity begins with an inner centeredness, calm and peaceful, which does not mean that we have solved all our own problems and can now look down upon the rest of the world. Rather, it means that we have stopped pretending that the world is other than it is, or that we are other than we are, and accepted that the universe is not mine or yours to run, but a gift that is part practical joke in which we all share. Dearly beloved, be clear that what I describe is the state of being to which I aspire, not one that I have by any means attained. I know what it looks like because my people have shown me, each of them in glimpses and flashes at moments when they perhaps least knew they were instructing those around them about the nature of spiritual maturity. I know what it looks like because I have seen the transformations in people's lives, the critical decisions of high courage that changed everything, and the years of patient, sacrificial practice that have left some folks translucent to the light of the human spirit. I want my life to be like that, and there's nowhere else to learn it but here. I know of no scale by which to measure it, no cookbook, and no standardized test. And I am going to keep offering programs and activities and opportunities for participation in my ministry, and I hope they'll meet some members' needs some of the time. We will still count the attendance, but I will never believe that that is what we are really there for. I will continue to think that what we all most deeply want is not the diamond, but the inner wealth that makes it possible to give the diamond away, and that we are forever called to turn from the example of the tiger to the guidance of the fox, and that it is better to leave the woman at the riverbank than to carry her along all day in our condemnations. I will persist in believing it to be true that the soul hath lifted moments above the drift of days, when life's great meaning breaketh in sunrise on our ways, and that those moments are precious in themselves, as well as clues to help us along the path toward the fully human and mature person that our best selves yearn to be. This is what makes us truly siblings on the earth, that we are engaged in the task of growing up together, helping each other as best we can, often without even knowing that's what we are doing. Even if we can't measure it, even if Willow Creek can't bottle it and sell it, this is what we are about, and it is the most important, most unendingly fascinating, most real enterprise that I know. Will you rise and join me in song?
The morning hangs a signal upon the mountain crest, while all the sleeping valleys in silent darkness rest. From peak to peak it flashes, it laughs along the sky, till glory of the sunlight on all the land shall lie. Above the generations, the lonely prophets rise, while truth flares as the day star within their glowing eyes. And other eyes beholding are kindled from that flame, and dawn becomes the morning when prophets love proclaim. The soul has lifted moments above the drift of days, when life's great meaning breaketh in sunrise on our ways. Behold the radiant token of faith above the fear. Night shall release its splendor, that morning shall appear.
We release these flames, but not the light of truth, the warmth of connections, or the energy of commitment. For these we send forth into the world beyond these walls and carry in our minds and hearts until we are together again. In the words of the French author Rainer Maria Rilke, be patient toward all that is unsolved in your heart, and try to love the questions themselves, like law rooms and like books that are now written in a very foreign tongue. Do not now seek the certain answers which cannot be given to you because you would not be able to live them, and the point is to live everything. Live the questions now. Perhaps you will then gradually, without noticing it, live along some distant day into the answer.